Hello, welcome to Temple Baptist Church, our Sunday school today. We are in Session 11. We've been in Genesis for 2 quarters now, so we're about to get done. We've got a couple of more lessons after this one, but the title of today's lesson is Revealed, and God does reveal His plans when we trust Him. Now, He reveals them different ways, of course, and He doesn't reveal them we're not going to talk too much about that, but by dreams, and that's what we're looking at today. We're looking at some interpretation of dreams, or being told what the dream means and what's going on and all of that. And so, if you look at understanding the context a little bit, in chapter 40, Joseph has shown how Joseph ascended from Pharaoh's prison to become the most popular and powerful man in Egypt, only second to Pharaoh himself. And so, Joseph's purity and integrity had been tested in Pharaoh's home, hadn't it? And Joseph has showed himself to be extraordinary in every way under the distress of sexual temptations, false accusations, and undeserved imprisonment. He is being treated unfairly because of integrity. He's doing right. He's doing what should be done. And so to have this happen, and we find in Joseph's life a little bit, I think, ever since his brothers sold him, it's been one thing after another. It says happened to him, but we know that God is in control. And we probably won't get into that too much in this lesson, other than the fact that, God is in control. And, when we look at the faith of Joseph, when God extended kindness to him in the king's prison for granting him favor with the warden, those things happened, and Joseph was willing to take all the responsibility the warden give him, and he did not give up, and he's demonstrating his faith is what he's doing. We need to demonstrate our faith today. He's demonstrating his faith in God by his willingness to interpret a dream of the cupbearer and the baker. This is and Joseph is not interpreting these himself, is he? He's not doing that. He knows that it belongs to God, and he didn't offer to. He wouldn't offer to interpret the dreams if he no longer believed in God, and it was God speaking through him. So he's maintaining his faith in God, even though he's in prison, even though these things are happening to him. Probably a lot of us today would have just threw up our hands and said, "Oh my, I'm done. This is more than I can handle." And but it wasn't. And the dreams of the cupbearer and the baker, they predicted the future, just as Joseph. Go back in Joseph's dreams as a youngster, and to his family, and that's what got him through in the pit. That's what got him sold into slavery, and that. But he's willing now to interpret the dreams, and so after that, and he asked the cupbearer, said, before before Pharaoh, you remember me? And well, he did, but it took a while. It took a while before he did that, but one of them's dream was that in 3 days he's going to be released, and the other one in 3 days he was going to be hung, and so that's what happened, and and his rise to power and everything that happened in Joseph's life from birth till now, until we get on into some of these things, happened because of the plan and power of God. You ever think about that in your life? Everything happens because of God. It's not just coincidence, is it? Not just coincidence that we're studying this lesson today. Not just coincidence that we're talking about integrity, how Joseph reacted, and going back and looking at how he reacted when Pharaoh's wife had tried to entice him and get him to commit adultery with her, and he refused, and then he's threw back in prison, and now we get into our text. We're going to read the first verses here, 14 through 16, and then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved him and changed his raiment, and he came into Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I had dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. I have heard say of thee that thou can understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. Again, he's not taking any credit for it. It's not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. It may not be the peace he's wanting, not the peace he's looking for, but he's doing that. And, just go back to, Joseph again had asked the cupbearer to remember him, and now it's happened, and forgot about him, I think, a couple of years even since that. And, now Pharaoh has had these two dreams. He's had these two very vivid dreams that we're going to talk about a little bit. And, none of his soothsayers, or whatever you want to call them, could interpret the dream, could tell him what it was about. And but the cupbearer, he finally remembers this young man, a Hebrew, that interpreted his dream and the other dream, and so he tells Pharaoh about it. And he immediately, as soon as he finds out about it, he immediately summons him to court as quickly as they could get Pharaoh servant transformed, because Joseph's appearance from that of a Hebrew slave to one dressed appropriate to be in Pharaoh's court. They had to act quickly, because if it's been 2 years since he's interpreted that dream for the cupbearer, then he's probably not looking too much like a person ought to look. He need to be shaved, and and Egyptian men shaved their heads and faces. Beards were associated with gods, and he's not a god, so we know that. And so and again, I want to point out how quick it is that Joseph quickly corrects Pharaoh, said concerning Joseph's ability. Pharaoh said, I hear you have the ability to interpret dreams. And boy, Joseph could have threw his chest out there and said, yep, I can do it. I can do it. But no, he didn't do that, did he? He said, it is not in me. I don't have that ability. It's not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Pharaoh, a pleasant answer, it doesn't mean that God, it means God would give, it may not be pleasant, but he's going to give him the correct interpretation of his dream. And so Joseph here is made the association that God, regarding Pharaoh's dream, without having any idea of what had actually dreamed. He didn't have any idea what Pharaoh has dreamed. He hadn't told him yet, but he knows that God can handle it, doesn't he? He knows that God can do that. And so, and now in 17 through 21, Pharaoh's going to tell Joseph about his dream. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there come up out of the river 7 kine, fattish and well-favored, and they fed in the meadows. And behold, 7 other kine come up after them, poor and very ill-favored, and lean flesh, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fatted kine, and when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored as at the beginning. So I woke. Here's my dream. There's these 7 nice cattle. They're in the river. I think they're probably standing in the water a little bit there. We've seen cattle do. They're cooling down a little bit. And, this river, there was an economical thing for them in the way they'd done this river and everything. But anyhow, it's, coming up out of the water to graze in the middle. They'd been in the water. They come up to graze a little bit. And so they do that. And, Pharaoh saw 7 cows, and, the 7 lean cows come up and eat the 7 fatted calves. And, but even after doing that, they didn't look any better than they did. It didn't fatten them up. And so the 7 healthy cows next to the 7 sickly cows, we would think. And it wasn't astonishing enough, like I say, when they'd eaten them up, they just wondered about that. And so, in his second dream, Pharaoh invites the same theme with 7, and the full heads of grain, and the sprouted up, followed by 7 withered heads of grain, and that's in verses 22 through 24. And we don't we don't cover those in our text today. We skip over those a little bit and to get on to things. But this same, it's meaning the same thing, just using something else to show Pharaoh what's going to happen. And Pharaoh, these things were about to happen. They were going to happen soon, and so you need to find out what's going on here. And so now then, we're getting to the plan defined. All right, we know what the problem is. You know what the problem is, then you got to find a plan to do that. And so now, therefore, let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the fifth part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years, and let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn into the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep the food in the cities. And that food shall be forstored the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of all his servants. So, okay, we've had the interpretation of the dream. They did that. They've interpreted a dream, and this is what's going to happen. It's going to be a famine, 7-year famine. There's going to be 7 years of plenty, and then there's going to be 7 years of famine. So we got the problem. What's the plan? If you got a problem, you need a plan. So the plan is that he's told him what God is about to do, but he also gave him some wise counsel concerning what Pharaoh should do in preparation for what's about to happen. And this is going to be an enormous task. It wasn't just going to be easy to look out a man discreet and wise and set him over the land of Egypt. This person was going to be given all his efforts and immediate strategy to putting away enough of the harvest of the 7 good years to cover the 7 years of famine. And so, appoint officers through Egypt to collect the 20% of the harvest during the first 7 years. We're going to get plenty. And Joseph's plan makes sense to Pharaoh and his royal servants. They all agree to it. And in fact, Pharaoh was so impressed, wasn't he? Who's he appoint as the man that's going to be this? He appoints Joseph second in command, and he gives him authority over all Egypt to improvise the strategy that Joseph had proposed to him. I put the plan in action. You decided the problem. You give me a plan. Now let's put that plan in action. And that's where we're at in this thing today. Like I say, this is just to me a pretty short Sunday school lesson maybe that we have here. I'm not taking a whole lot of time today to bring this to you, but when we think about it, and we go back and think of all the things that has happened in Joseph's life, and but he still remained faithful to God. We got other people in the Bible that have done the same thing, and so we need to do that, don't we? So just like I say, this will be a short lesson this time, but just remember that God is the faithful one. We need to remain true to Him. Like I say, a lot of things that could have happened. You could surmise here that Joseph could have done this, Joseph could have done that, but no, he remained faithful to God. He told Pharaoh, it's not me. I'm not the one that's doing it. It's God that is doing it, and we need to always give God the credit. Come and be a part of our Sunday school classes here at Temple. We'd be glad to have you at any time. May God bless you is our prayer.